He never raises his voice. He never wastes energy proving himself. And yet every person around him ends up moving exactly the way he wants. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka is not just another anime character. He is the embodiment of invisible dominance, a master of human psychology, who wins not through strength or status, but by pulling invisible strings that others cannot even see. Ask yourself this: why do the smartest students in his class constantly underestimate him? Why do natural leaders end up dancing in his shadow? And why, even when Ayanokoji does nothing, does it feel as if he is the one who has already written the script? That is the paradox of true power. Strongest controller is often the one who never looks like he is in control at all. What makes Ayanokoji terrifying is not his intelligence alone, but the way he uses psychology as a weapon. He doesn't need to fight. He doesn't need recognition. He doesn't even care about being remembered. His goal is singular control of the outcome, regardless of who gets the credit. And the way he does this is not magic, not luck, but a system. A set of psychological tricks so powerful they can bend almost anyone to his will. Over the course of this video, we are going to break down the 5 psychological strategies Ayanokoji uses to dominate every situation. The power of silence, the ability to find weaknesses instead of strengths, the art of manipulating perception, the skill of using others as shields, and finally, the ultimate weapon: emotional detachment. By the time you finish watching, you will not only understand why Ayanokoji always wins, you will begin to see how you can use the same principles in your own life. But let me give you a warning before we dive in. These are not party tricks. They are not surface-level hacks you can use to impress someone at dinner. These are tools of power, tools of manipulation. And once you begin to apply them, you will see the world differently. You will notice how easily people can be bent, how fragile confidence really is, and how predictable human behavior becomes when you understand what drives it. That is why these lessons are so dangerous. Because once you learn them, you cannot unlearn them. And here's the truth. Most people live their entire lives being controlled without realizing it. By friends, by bosses, by strangers who understand psychology better than they do. Ayanokoji never lets that happen to him. Instead, he flips the game. He studies people silently. He lets them believe they are in charge. And when the moment comes, he pushes one hidden lever, and everything collapses in his favor. If you've ever wanted to become the kind of person who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be thrown off balance, who cannot be played like a pawn, this video is for you. Because when you master the mindset of Ayanokoji, you stop living in reaction to the world, and you start bending the world to your will. And if you want to keep learning these same psychological tools, strategies used not just by anime masterminds, but by leaders, negotiators, and thinkers throughout history, then hit subscribe right now. This channel is where we decode power and control. If you have ever wanted to sharpen your mind until it scares people, this is where it begins. So do it now. Hit that button. Because what comes next will shift the way you see human psychology forever. In the next few minutes, you are going to see why silence can be more powerful than words. Why noticing weakness can give you more control than admiring strength. Why appearing harmless is often the smartest disguise. Why the most powerful people in history never work alone, but use others as shields. And why emotional detachment is the final weapon that separates those who are enslaved by their impulses from those who can enslave others with ease. These are the 5 psychological tricks of Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. And today, they will become your weapons too. So take a deep breath, clear your mind, because you are about to step into the world of invisible control. Once you do, nothing about the way you see people, conversations, or power will ever be the same again.
Silence is not empty. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon, sharper than words, sharper than arguments, sharper even than strength. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka proves this over and over again. When you watch him, what is most unsettling is not what he says, but what he does not say. While every other student argues, debates, or panics, Ayanokoji stays still. His expression blank, his voice flat, his presence almost invisible. And yet, in that silence, he gains more power than anyone screaming for attention ever could. Think back to his interactions with Suzune Horikita. She is proud, sharp, always trying to assert control. And yet, when Ayanokoji sits quietly, listening without reacting, she grows restless. She feels the need to explain herself more, to justify her decisions, to prove her worth. His silence creates a vacuum and she cannot help but fill it. That is the first way silence works as a weapon. It makes the other person reveal more than they intended. In another scene, when Ryuen and his gang confront Ayanokoji, they expect him to show fear, to argue, to fight back. But Ayanokoji stays calm and says almost nothing. The more silent he remains, the more unnerved Ryuen becomes, because silence disrupts the script. Bullies thrive on reaction. They want anger, they want fear, they want resistance. But when they are met with nothing, they are thrown off balance. Silence is a disruption strategy. It breaks the rhythm of the other person's mind. Psychology confirms this. Studies in negotiation show that after you make an offer, staying silent increases the chances that the other side will speak first, often revealing their true position or even negotiating against themselves. Interrogation experts use silence to pressure suspects. They ask a question, then stay completely quiet. Most people cannot handle the tension, so they rush to fill it, often spilling secrets they meant to guard. Silence is not passive. Silence is active pressure. One of the most famous negotiation tactics in business is called the awkward pause. When a number is on the table, the negotiator goes quiet. That silence feels unbearable, so the other side often lowers their demand just to break it. The silence becomes leverage. This is exactly how Ayanokoji operates. He never fights for attention. He never tries to dominate the room with noise. Instead, he lets silence do the work. In a world where everyone else is talking, the one who can stay silent holds the upper hand. But let's go even deeper. Why does silence make people uncomfortable? The answer lies in psychology. Human beings are social creatures. Our brains are wired to seek connection, approval, and feedback. In conversation, silence feels like rejection. It feels like judgment. When someone goes quiet, we wonder, what are they thinking? Are they disagreeing? Do they know something I do not? That uncertainty breeds anxiety. And in that anxiety, people give away their power. Ayanokoji uses this perfectly. He knows that when he stays quiet, people project their fears onto him. They begin to over-explain. They confess too much. They reveal their weaknesses, and he simply observes, collecting information without ever exposing himself. Silence, then, is not the absence of communication. It is communication in its purest, most powerful form. Now, let us translate this into real life. Imagine you are in a heated argument. Someone is attacking you, throwing accusations. The instinct is to fire back, to defend yourself. But if you pause, stay silent, and simply look at them, their energy begins to crumble. They expected resistance. They wanted a fight. But you gave them a void instead. And in that void, their own words echo back at them, making them feel foolish, or think of a negotiation. You are at a job interview, and the recruiter asks, "What salary are you expecting?" You answer with a reasonable number, then you stay silent. Do not rush to justify it. Do not backpedal. Let the silence hang. In most cases, the other side will start filling the gap, offering more benefits, higher numbers, or concessions you never even asked for. Silence makes them negotiate against themselves. Even in daily conversation, silence is a superpower. When you listen more than you speak, people feel heard. They reveal more, they trust you more, and the less you say, the more impact your words have when you finally choose to speak. Ayanokoji embodies this principle. Every time he speaks, people listen because he does not waste words. His silence creates gravity, and his words carry weight. But here's the hidden lesson. Silence is not just about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. Most people fear silence because they fear being insignificant. They talk to prove themselves, to be noticed, to feel important. But Ayanokoji has no such need. He is secure in his detachment. He does not need recognition. And that is why his silence is so terrifying, because it shows total control over his own ego. This is where you can learn the deepest lesson. If you can master silence, you master yourself. You stop reacting emotionally. You stop revealing your hand. You stop being predictable. And once you do, you can begin to shape others without them even realizing it. Think about leaders throughout history. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, was known for his calm restraint. He did not shout, he did not seek attention, and yet his presence commanded respect. In martial arts, the calm fighter often defeats the aggressive one because silence and patience allow for precision. Even in business, the quiet CEO is often underestimated until the moment he makes a move that changes everything. Ayanokoji reflects all of this. His silence is not emptiness, it is a battlefield. While others rush forward, he waits. While others reveal their emotions, he hides his. And in that quiet, he wins before the game has even begun. So how can you use this? Start small. In your next conversation, resist the urge to fill every gap. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. When someone criticizes you, let silence hang instead of rushing to defend yourself. Notice how uncomfortable they become. Notice how the power shifts, and then go further. Practice being comfortable with silence in your own mind. Sit in stillness. Train yourself not to need validation, not to need constant reaction. Because the more comfortable you are in silence, the more power you will have over those who are not. That is the essence of Ayanokoji's first trick, the power of silence. It is not loud, it is not flashy, it is invisible. And yet, it controls everything. The world belongs not to those who shout the loudest, but to those who can stay quiet and let others destroy themselves with their own noise. Most people spend their lives admiring strength. They look at talent, skills, and intelligence and become blinded by them. They think this person is unbeatable, but Ayanokoji never looks at strength. He looks at weakness. He studies not what makes you powerful, but what makes you fragile. And that is why he always wins. Think about it. Every opponent in classroom of the elite is skilled in some way. Ryuen has physical dominance and charisma. Ichika has discipline and confidence. Horikita has intelligence and leadership. On the surface, these people should be threats. But to Ayanokoji, their strengths mean nothing. He knows that strength only matters if it is unbroken, and every strength hides a weakness. Charisma hides insecurity. Discipline hides obsession. Intelligence hides arrogance. That hidden flaw is where Ayanokoji strikes. One of the most chilling examples is his battle against Ryuen. Ryuen believes power comes from fear and force. He builds his image as a brutal leader who can crush anyone through intimidation. But Ayanokoji studies him and realizes Ryuen's real weakness, his ego. Ryuen cannot back down once challenged. He cannot walk away without proving dominance. That single weakness is enough for Ayanokoji to dismantle him completely. He does not need to outmatch Ryuen's strength. He only needs to press on the flaw and Ryuen collapses. This is a universal law of psychology. Human beings are more sensitive to weaknesses than to strengths. In fact, research shows we have a built-in negativity bias. Our brains pay more attention to flaws, threats, and mistakes than to positive qualities. Why? Because survival depends on it. Thousands of years ago, ignoring one weakness, a broken branch underfoot, a snake in the grass, meant death. Our brains evolved to spot danger, not beauty. Ayanokoji weaponizes this bias, but in reverse. While others admire strength and are blinded by it, he bypasses the surface and zooms directly into the cracks. It is like a chess player who does not care how many powerful pieces you have left. He only looks for the one weak spot in your defense, because once he finds it, the rest of your army becomes useless. In real life, this principle explains why great empires fall. Rome was not destroyed by the strength of its enemies, but by its own internal weaknesses: corruption, division, and arrogance. Companies are not defeated by competitors' brilliance, but by their own lack of adaptation. Even relationships do not break because of someone else's perfection, but because of small vulnerabilities: jealousy, insecurity, pride that slowly tear the bond apart. And here is the terrifying truth: your strengths can actually blind you to your weaknesses. A smart student often becomes overconfident, ignoring their blind spots. A strong leader often becomes stubborn, unable to admit fault. The stronger the front, the more fragile the hidden flaw behind it. This is exactly what Ayanokoji understands better than anyone. He does not waste energy competing with people where they are strong. He does not try to match Ryuen's aggression, Ichika's discipline, or Horikita's ambition. He sidesteps all of that and goes for the single point of collapse. And once he hits it, everything crumbles like dominoes. Now, let's connect this to psychology again. Researchers call this vulnerability detection, the ability to notice what makes someone insecure, uncomfortable, or unstable. Great negotiators, spies, and interrogators rely on this skill. They don't just listen to what people say. They watch micro-expressions, body language, tone shifts, hesitation. Ayanokoji does the same. Every interaction becomes data. Every slip of the tongue, every glance, every emotional outburst becomes a thread he can pull later. This is why he often plays the fool, pretending to be average. People lower their guard around him. They reveal more than they should, because they don't see him as a threat. But while they relax, he is silently recording every detail, building a map of their weaknesses. That map becomes his greatest weapon. Now let's turn this into your life. How can you use this trick? Start by training your eye away from strengths. When you meet someone impressive, don't ask, what makes them great? Ask, what could break them? If someone is confident, is it real? Or is it covering insecurity? If someone is loud, are they masking fear? If someone is ambitious, do they crumble under pressure? Look not at the armor, but at the cracks in the armor. In business, this could mean spotting the one weakness in a competitor's strategy and exploiting it. Maybe they are strong in marketing but weak in innovation. In leadership, it means understanding that the loudest voices in the room often hide the deepest insecurity, and once you recognize it, you can influence them by pressing gently on that vulnerability. In relationships, it means seeing not just what someone shows you, but what they try hardest to hide. Here's a practical exercise. In your next conversation, pay less attention to what someone says about their strengths. Instead, watch for moments of discomfort. Do they avoid certain topics? Do their eyes dart away when pressed? Do they get defensive easily? Those are the tells of weakness. That is where their real truth lies. And that is where influence begins. But let's be clear. Reading weakness is not about cruelty. It does not mean destroying people. It means understanding them at their core. If you want to lead, if you want to influence, if you want to protect yourself, you must see people's vulnerabilities. Ayanokoji uses it for control, but you can use it for empathy or strategy. Either way, the skill is the same. And here's the paradox. Most people will never learn this because they are too focused on proving their own strength. They want to be admired. They want to shine. They want to be the strongest in the room. Ayanokoji does not care about any of that. He knows true power lies not in being the strongest but in knowing exactly where others are weak. Think again of his calm face, his emotionless eyes. While everyone else is blinded by pride or anger, he is scanning, calculating, noticing. To him, strength is noise, weakness is signal, and the one who can read weakness will always control the game. So the second trick is simple but brutal. Ignore people's strengths, focus only on their flaws. The greatest swordsman in the world still falls if you find the one opening in his stance. The loudest leader still crumbles if you find the insecurity behind the mask. The brightest genius still fails if you expose the arrogance that blinds them. This is the way of Ayanokoji. He is not impressed by greatness. He is only interested in fragility, and fragility, once exposed, always breaks. Ayanokoji is a genius. That much is undeniable. His mind operates on a level far above his classmates. And yet almost nobody realizes it. Why? Because he chooses to hide it. He chooses to look average. He chooses to be invisible. This is what makes him terrifying. The most dangerous wolf is not the one that bares its fangs. It is the one that blends in with the sheep until the moment it strikes. That is Ayanokoji's third trick, the art of manipulating perception. At first glance, he seems unremarkable. His grades are deliberately average. His behavior is deliberately plain. His tone is deliberately flat. To his classmates, he is background noise. Nothing special, nothing threatening. And that is exactly how he wants it. Because when nobody is looking at you, you are free to control everything from the shadows. This strategy is what I call the invisible wolf. Instead of standing out, you camouflage yourself. You let others underestimate you. You play the fool, the average, the harmless. And in doing so, you gain the greatest advantage of all: surprise. One of the most striking examples comes during the survival test arc. While other students compete to show off leadership, strategy, and courage, Ayanokoji deliberately downplays his role. He lets Horikita believe she is the one making decisions, that she is in charge. But behind the curtain, he is pulling the strings. He makes key choices, influences outcomes, and manipulates the situation so the credit never falls on him. By the time his class realizes the brilliance of the plan, it is already over and nobody even suspects his hand. Why is this so effective? Because human beings are wired to judge by appearances. Psychologists call this social perception bias. We assume that confident people are competent, that loud people are leaders, that visible effort equals strength. But reality is very different. Confidence can be a mask, loudness can be insecurity. And real strength often hides in silence. Ayanokoji exploits this flaw in human thinking by making himself look weaker than he is. This connects to a concept in psychology known as self-handicapping. It is when someone deliberately downplays their abilities or creates excuses in advance, so others underestimate them. But unlike ordinary self-handicapping, which people use to protect their ego, Ayanokoji uses it as a weapon. By lowering expectations, he ensures that nobody sees him coming. And when the time is right, he exceeds those expectations so dramatically that his opponents never recover. You see the same principle in real history. The greatest spies never looked like spies. They looked ordinary, forgettable, harmless. The most powerful CEOs often dress casually, speak simply, and act approachable while quietly controlling billion-dollar empires. Even great military leaders have used this trick. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, wrote, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." Ayanokoji embodies this rule perfectly. He hides his intelligence until the exact moment it can crush his enemies. But why does this work so well? Because of strategic underestimation. If people think you are weak, they do not guard against you. They speak freely around you. They make mistakes in front of you. They ignore you when they should fear you, and by the time they realize their error, it is too late. This is why Ayanokoji lets Horikita believe she is the mastermind. This is why he lets Ryuen believe he is in control. This is why his teachers underestimate him. Their perception is manipulated. They see a harmless student, not a hidden strategist. And because of that, he gains freedom. He gains invisibility. He gains control. Now think about how this applies to your life. Most people are obsessed with looking impressive. They want everyone to know how smart they are, how strong they are, how talented they are, but that only paints a target on their back. The more visible your power, the more others will try to challenge it, compete with it, or bring it down. Ayanokoji teaches the opposite. True power thrives in the shadows. If you hide your intelligence, you gather information freely. If you hide your ambition, you move without resistance. If you act average, you are underestimated, and underestimation is the most powerful weapon in strategy. Imagine being in a business meeting. Everyone is fighting to show they are the smartest in the room. You sit quietly, nodding, looking neutral. People relax around you. They speak more than they should. They reveal their weaknesses. And then, when the moment comes, you drop one precise comment, one perfect solution, and the entire room is forced to reevaluate you. That is the invisible valve strategy in action, or imagine in social dynamics. A person is loud, arrogant, trying to dominate the group. Instead of competing, you act average. You don't push back, you don't show off. They assume you are beneath them. But when the critical moment comes, whether it is solving a problem, seizing an opportunity, or handling a crisis, you reveal your hidden ability. Their ego collapses, and suddenly, the balance of power shifts entirely in your favor. The beauty of this trick is that it requires no effort to show strength. It requires discipline to hide strength, and discipline is rarer than talent. Ayanokoji's brilliance is not only in being a genius, but in having the patience to look ordinary. Let's connect this to leadership. Great leaders often disguise their true level of control. They let others take credit. They make others feel important. But behind the scenes, they are orchestrating everything. Steve Jobs once said, "Great things in business are never done by one person." True. But notice Jobs often let his team shine in public, while he quietly directed the vision in private. This is perception manipulation. Let others believe they are free, while you quietly guide the outcome. Even in warfare, generals have used this trick. During World War II, the Allies created fake armies, fake radio transmissions, fake tanks made of wood just to manipulate the perception of the Nazis. They made themselves look weaker or stronger depending on the situation. The result, D-Day, was a success because Hitler was looking in the wrong direction. Perception, not just firepower, won the war. And in personal life, perception manipulation can protect you. If you act too impressive, you attract envy, jealousy, sabotage. But if you act normal, average, even a little clumsy, you disarm others. They don't see you as competition, they relax. And in that relaxed state, they show you everything you need to control them later. This is why Ayanokoji is feared by those who finally discover the truth. Because they realize too late that the quiet boy they ignored was studying them the whole time. They realize too late that their perception was manipulated, and by then, the game is already over. So here is the lesson for you: stop rushing to prove yourself. Stop flashing your intelligence. Stop trying to dominate the spotlight. Instead, learn the art of invisibility. Learn the art of the invisible valve. Let people underestimate you. Let them dismiss you. Let them believe you are average, because in that illusion lies your freedom. When you control how others see you, you control how they treat you. And when you decide when to reveal your true strength, you decide the outcome of the game. That is Ayanokoji's third psychological trick: manipulating perception. Appear weak when you are strong. Appear average when you are brilliant. Appear invisible until it is time to strike. The wolf that hides among the sheep always eats first. Ayanokoji almost never steps into the spotlight. He doesn't argue for leadership, he doesn't fight for credit, and he rarely gets caught taking the blame. Instead, he stands behind others quietly, invisibly, while they become the face of his strategies. This is not cowardice, this is not laziness, this is deliberate. Because when others are shields, you are untouchable. Think of Horikita Suzu. To the outside world, she looks like the leader of Class 1D. She makes decisions, gives commands, and carries the weight of responsibility. But behind the curtain, many of her so-called victories were orchestrated by Ayanokoji. He lets her take the spotlight because it protects him. If the strategy succeeds, she gets the credit. If it fails, she takes the blame. Either way, Ayanokoji remains unseen. That invisibility is his greatest defense. Consider his conflict with Ryuen. When Ryuen suspected someone was manipulating events, he didn't even think of Ayanokoji at first. He suspected Horikita, then others. Ayanokoji's invisibility shielded him. Even when Ryuen confronted him, Ayanokoji engineered the fight so that Ryuen never got the chance to expose his role to the rest of the class. Ayanokoji's shield strategy isn't just about hiding. It's about ensuring that even enemies can't properly target him. Psychology has a name for this: scapegoating and diffusion of responsibility. Scapegoating is when a group places blame on one visible figure, even if the real cause is hidden elsewhere. Diffusion of responsibility happens when people assume someone else will take charge, allowing the true mastermind to remain in the background. Ayanokoji exploits both. By pushing others forward as leaders, he ensures the group focuses its judgment on them, not him. He orchestrates from behind the curtain, where nobody is looking. This tactic is not unique to him. History is full of leaders who used shields to remain untouchable. Kings often had advisors or ministers who took the blame when policies failed. CEOs often have managers to take heat when strategies flop. In politics, presidents have press secretaries who absorb public anger. The shield is essential because power is fragile. The one in the spotlight attracts attention, envy, and attack. The one behind the shield controls without risk. Let's look deeper into why this works. Humans have a natural bias to focus on the visible actor. Psychologists call this the fundamental attribution error. We overestimate the role of individuals we can see, and underestimate hidden causes. If someone appears to be leading, we assume they are responsible. If someone looks quiet, we assume they are uninvolved. Ayanokoji manipulates this instinct. He ensures someone else always looks like the responsible one, while he remains invisible. This is not just protection, it's strategy. By using shields, Ayanokoji multiplies his influence. Horikita fights for leadership because she believes it's hers. Classmates follow her, thinking she is the strategist. Teachers evaluate her, not him. But in reality, the strings are in Ayanokoji's hands. His shield allows him to lead without ever being recognized as the leader. Now think about how this translates into real life. If you want to influence a group, you don't always need to be the loudest voice. You don't always need to be the leader. In fact, it is often more powerful to be the one who whispers in the leader's ear. When they succeed, they feel proud, not realizing you guided them. When they fail, they take the blame, and you remain untouched, That is shield strategy in practice. Here's a concrete example. In organizations, the smartest people aren't always CEOs. They are often advisors or board members. They influence decisions while the CEO becomes the public shield. If the company fails, the CEO falls, but the quiet strategist can simply move on, untarnished. This is the Ayanokoji method in the corporate world. Another example comes from history. Cardinal Richelieu, the chief minister of France, wielded immense power during King Louis XIII's reign. Yet, Richelieu rarely appeared as the central figure. He positioned the king as the face of decisions, while he shaped policy behind the scenes. The king was the shield, Richelieu was the puppeteer. This is exactly how Ayanokoji operates in his classroom. But this strategy doesn't always mean hiding in the shadows forever. Sometimes, you deliberately place others in front only to test them. Ayanokoji often pushes Horikita into leadership not because he wants her glory, but because he wants to measure her growth. She becomes both his shield and his experiment. He protects himself while testing others' limits. Now, how can you use this in your own life? The key is to build influence networks. Instead of trying to do everything yourself, find people who are willing to carry your ideas forward. Share your thoughts subtly. Let them believe those ideas are theirs, then step back. If they succeed, you've shaped the outcome without risk. If they fail, you've lost nothing, because you are never the face of it. This doesn't mean manipulation must always be cruel. In leadership, pushing others forward can help them grow. In teamwork, letting others take credit can boost morale. But the principle remains. By making others the visible actors, you keep yourself shielded. There's also a psychological benefit. When someone feels ownership of an idea, they fight harder for it. If Ayanokoji had openly declared, "This is my strategy," his classmates might resist out of pride. But when Horikita believes the plan is hers, she invests fully. That's the brilliance of the shield. Others not only protect you, but they also become your soldiers without realizing it. This principle is seen in modern workplaces too. A clever manager doesn't push their own agenda aggressively. Instead, they frame their idea in a way that makes team members think it was theirs. People then execute it passionately, believing they are in charge. The manager, protected, invisible, and in control. But there's a darker side as well. Shields can be used ruthlessly. In politics, scapegoats are sacrificed to protect the powerful. In business, middle managers take the fall while executives escape. In relationships, people sometimes push partners forward as shields to protect their own image. This is the danger of the shield strategy. It creates power, but it can also destroy trust if exposed. Ayanokoji accepts that risk because he doesn't care about bonds. He doesn't care about being liked. For him, people are tools, shields are disposable. That cold detachment is what makes his strategy effective. For most of us, ethics may prevent going that far. But the principle is still useful. If you want control, don't always stand in the open. Use shields. So, how do you master this? First, stop craving credit. Let others shine. Second, learn to whisper ideas subtly, planting seeds instead of demanding attention. Third, recognize who in your network can serve as a shield, who wants recognition, who craves leadership, who is willing to stand in the spotlight. Let them. While they stand exposed, you stand safe. This is Ayanokoji's fourth psychological trick, using others as shields. It is not glamorous, it is not heroic, but it is powerful. Invisibility behind someone else's shadow gives you protection, influence, and freedom. And when the game is over, you remain untouchable, while everyone else bears the scars. When you look at Ayanokoji, you see a boy who never raises his voice. He never celebrates a victory. He never panics at failure. His face is calm, his tone is flat, his presence is unreadable. To most, this makes him mysterious. To the few who understand, it makes him terrifying. Because nothing is more dangerous than a man who cannot be emotionally shaken. Ayanokoji's power isn't just intelligence. It isn't just strategy, it's detachment. His emotions do not control him, he controls them. No matter what happens, his mind stays like still water. And this, more than anything else, is why he dominates every psychological battlefield. Let's step back for a moment. Why do people lose control in life? It's not because of what happens, but because of how they react. Insults trigger anger. Failure triggers despair. Stress triggers panic. Manipulation triggers emotional outbursts. Most people are puppets pulled by emotional strings. Ayanokoji is different. His strings are cut. That's why he is untouchable. This principle isn't fiction, it's rooted in philosophy. The Stoics of ancient Rome taught that emotions are storms. You cannot control the wind, but you can control how you sail. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Ayanokoji embodies this teaching. His strength comes from refusing to be ruled by chaos. Eastern philosophy also echoes this. In Buddhism, detachment is not about rejecting life, but about refusing to be enslaved by desire and fear. The calm monk meditating under the burning sun is untouchable because he has let go of attachment. Ayanokoji reflects the same idea. He doesn't chase recognition, he doesn't fear rejection, he doesn't crave validation. By detaching, he gains total freedom. Psychology agrees. Modern research shows that people with high emotional regulation perform better under stress, negotiate more effectively, and resist manipulation. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't let feelings drive reckless action. Ayanokoji feels, but he never reacts impulsively. That gap between feeling and reaction is his greatest weapon. Think about his battles. When Ryuen and his gang cornered him, anyone else would have panicked. Fear would take over, but Ayanokoji's face didn't even change. He dismantled them calmly, as if it were routine. That's the result of emotional detachment. Clarity in chaos. Panic clouds judgment, calmness sharpens it. Or consider his classmates. They constantly crave recognition, fear humiliation, or lash out in anger. Those emotions make them predictable, controllable. Ayanokoji observes, calculates, and uses their emotions against them. Because he is detached, he sees clearly. Because they are attached, they are blind. Now let's translate this into real life. Detachment is the skill of cutting the invisible strings that make you react automatically. Someone insults you, you want to fire back. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you want revenge. Someone ignores your message, you feel rejected. Each reaction gives power away. Detachment means you pause. You observe the feeling, but you don't obey it. That pause is where power lives. How do you practice this? Start with small things. Next time someone annoys you, don't react. Watch your anger rise, then let it pass like a wave. Next time you fail, don't drown in self-pity. Step back, analyze, and adjust. Detachment is built through repetition. Every time you refuse to be controlled by emotion, you strengthen the muscle of mastery. Here's the paradox. People think detachment makes you cold, but in truth, it makes you free. When you're not ruled by emotions, you make better decisions, form healthier relationships, and build resilience. You can still feel joy, love, and excitement, but you are not addicted to them. You can still feel sadness or anger, but you are not enslaved by them. Detachment doesn't remove humanity. It restores control. Look at leaders throughout history. Alexander the Great was known for controlling rage on the battlefield. He could inspire fear and loyalty because he didn't let insults shake him. Nelson Mandela, after decades in prison, emerged without bitterness because he detached from hatred. In modern times, CEOs and negotiators who stay calm under pressure dominate those who lose their temper. Detachment isn't rare, it's a mark of the greatest minds. There's also a self-defense angle. Emotional detachment is the antidote to manipulation. Manipulators feed on your feelings. They guilt-trip you, flatter you, or provoke anger. If you're detached, their weapons fail. You see the trick without reacting. Ayanokoji is immune to manipulation because he refuses to hand over emotional leverage. The moment you master this, you become unbreakable in social games. Let's be clear though, detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means perspective. Imagine holding a glass of water. If you grip it too tightly, your hand cramps. If you let it slip, you drop it. Detachment is the middle way, holding life without being crushed by it. Ayanokoji holds the world lightly, which is why he controls it. So, how do you apply this in daily life? Control anger when insulted. Remember that reacting gives your enemy power. Smile, walk away, or respond with calm. Control stress. When life throws chaos, detach. Focus only on what you can control. Let go of the rest. Control manipulation. When someone tries to guilt or provoke you, pause. Ask yourself, what do they gain if I react, then refuse to give it? Detach from outcomes. Don't tie your peace to winning or losing. Do your best, then accept the result calmly. This makes you fearless. Ayanokoji's detachment is extreme, almost inhuman. But even a fraction of it can change your life. Imagine walking through your day without being rattled by insults, failures, or pressure. Imagine making decisions with clarity, not panic. Imagine being uncheckable. That is the power of detachment. This brings us to the final truth. Real strength is not brute force. It is not intelligence alone. Real strength is the ability to remain calm when the world burns. Ayanokoji embodies this, and that is why he wins battles before they even begin. If you want to master your mind, start here. Detach from the chaos. Cut the strings. Control your emotions instead of letting them control you. That is how you become uncheckable. That is how you think like Ayanokoji. When you step back and look at everything we've explored, you begin to see the full picture of Ayanokoji's brilliance. It isn't just silence. It isn't just reading weakness. It isn't just camouflage, or using shields, or detachment. These are pieces of a greater philosophy. Ayanokoji's true weapon is not strength, not intelligence, not manipulation. His true weapon is invisible control. Invisible control is the art of mastering the battlefield without ever revealing you're in command. It's about pulling strings while making others believe they move on their own. It's about winning wars without fighting, directing outcomes without showing your hand. And that is what makes Ayanokoji terrifying. Think about it. The power of silence teaches us to control conversations by doing nothing. Reading weakness shows us where to strike when others are distracted by strength. Manipulating perception allows us to hide in plain sight, underestimated until the final move. Using others as shields makes us untouchable, pushing risks and consequences away while reaping rewards. And detachment severs the last string that can be pulled against us, our emotions. Together, they form a system of dominance that cannot be resisted. This is why Ayanokoji never needs to boast. He never needs to prove himself. His power is invisible, and invisible power is the hardest to fight against. You cannot defend against what you cannot see. Now imagine what happens when you bring this philosophy into your own life. Most people chase validation, argue to be heard, over-explain themselves, and react emotionally to everything. They are loud, they are obvious, and because of that, they are easy to manipulate. But if you live by invisible control, you rise above this. You become uncheckable. You become untouchable. You become unmanipulated. Ask yourself this: when was the last time someone pulled your strings? Did anger make you say things you regret? Did insecurity push you to prove yourself? Did fear stop you from acting? Did someone else's opinion shape your decisions? If so, you were being controlled and you didn't even notice it. That is the default state of most people, but not for those who choose invisible control. Invisible control begins with silence. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Not every insult deserves a reaction. The less you say, the more power your words carry when you finally speak. It grows stronger when you stop obsessing over strengths and instead focus on vulnerabilities, yours and others. Because every system, no matter how powerful, has a crack. Invisible control deepens when you learn to disguise yourself, hide your ambitions, and let others underestimate you. It protects you when you learn to push risks away and let others carry weight you don't need to bear. And finally, it solidifies when you detach from your emotions, because a calm mind cannot be broken. Put together, these tricks turn you into someone others cannot predict, cannot shake, cannot control. That is the essence of Ayanokoji. That is the essence of invisible control. But let's be clear, this isn't about copying a fictional character. This is about extracting timeless truths from psychology, philosophy, and strategy, and applying them to your own life. The Stoics knew this. The Buddhists knew this. Great leaders, spies, negotiators, and entrepreneurs have all known this. What Ayanokoji represents is the synthesis of their wisdom in its purest form, complete control without noise. And this is where the motivation lies. You don't need to be the strongest, smartest, or loudest person in the room. You just need to master yourself so deeply that nothing external can shake you. When you do, you become a force people cannot understand, and what people don't understand, they fear. Imagine walking into a room and never needing to prove yourself. Imagine negotiating without ever showing desperation. Imagine people underestimating you until it's too late. Imagine being immune to manipulation because your emotions cannot be exploited. That is what invisible control gives you. Not arrogance, not pride, but quiet, undeniable dominance. So the question becomes, will you live as most reactive, loud, obvious, or will you walk the path of the invisible? Will you be ruled by your emotions, or will you rule them? Will you fight for attention, or let silence make others lean in? Will you chase recognition, or let results speak in whispers? The truth is simple. If you can master invisible control, you no longer need approval. You no longer fear rejection. You no longer bend to manipulation. You stand in the middle of chaos, calm and untouchable, like still water. And from that stillness, you direct everything. That is Ayanokoji's final lesson. That is the psychology of a mastermind. Now, if this breakdown opened your eyes, don't let it end here. The mind you build today decides the power you wield tomorrow. Subscribe to this channel right now, because we are just getting started. In the next video, we'll dive even deeper into the psychology of control, power, and mastery. So if you want to sharpen your mind, this is where you belong. Comment below which of the 5 tricks spoke to you most. Was it silence, reading weakness, perception, using shields, or detachment? I want to hear your thoughts because every comment strengthens this community of thinkers. And remember, the world will always try to control you. People will always try to pull your strings, but the choice is yours. Will you remain a puppet, or will you cut the strings and become the invisible hand that guides the game? The answer is in your control.